Well, the day after Thanksgiving, it's Black Friday is what they call it. And I'm Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Crock tonight on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. You know my story. Born and raised up in Ohio. Now get a chance to give you common sense opinion on current events. That's all I do. You know what? Common sense is missing today. It's funny because a friend of mine is in town for the weekend. Rick come down from Nashville, and he and I and family were all sitting around talking, and I said, dude, I got to go. I'm on the radio soon. And he said, well, wait, no, I'm not done. I said, no, jump in the car. Let's go. So he came down to the studio with me, and I asked Rick to sit in with me. We'll continue the conversation because we were talking about all these things, about just common sense on the radio. I want to lead with the top stories tonight. Three things that really stick out to me. Number one is right now, as we speak, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in Florida. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He flew to Florida today and was having dinner with Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago club less than a week after Trump, the president-elect, threatened heavy tariffs on imports from North American trading partners. That's pretty telling. We'll talk about that in about 2 minutes. Secondly, I want to talk about Albertsons. There's a recall of food. I'll get to that in about 60 seconds that could impact what's in your refrigerator. But I want to lead real quick with the breaking news earlier today. My family, we always go out the day after Thanksgiving and cut down a Christmas tree, bring it home, decorate it, set it up. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But while I was out and about this afternoon, I saw a story hit in the sports world that Chicago Bears head coach Matt Eberflus had been fired. We talked about this last night. That game yesterday between the Bears and the Lions was absolutely disgusting. He absolutely botched it up. He lost the game for his players. Unacceptable. And after the game, I was watching Fox, the post-game show, and Jimmy Johnson said, in over 700 games of coaching between Little League and college, high school, all the way up to the Dallas Cowboys, Jimmy Johnson said he has never seen such a piss-poor clock management operation than what experienced yesterday in the Bears. That coach lost the game for him. I don't ask for somebody to lose their job and their entire staff, but the man deserved to lose his job. They've got a generational quarterback in Caleb Williams. The NFL has 75 of the 100 top television-rated shows in the last year on television. The NFL has a lot of money tied up with networks, Network TV and Amazon, some of the others, and vice versa. They're in partnership with each other, and it is the biggest thing on television. They have to be involved with what's going on in the NFL. When you have bad coaching and you have bad things going on like that, you've got to get it fixed. So kudos to them to do that. I hope they get a really good coach in Chicago. The NFL is a much better product when big market teams like Dallas and Chicago and the New York Giants and the New York Jets are playing well. Not just this. And you look across the NFL, the teams that are winning top of the charts, the smaller market teams. Cincinnati Bengals are usually pretty good. The Baltimore Ravens, Green Bay Packers, the Kansas City Chiefs. The smaller market teams are the ones that are winning. They need the big market teams to work. They need them to drive ratings, and they need them to win. Kudos to the Bears for actually having the guts to do that and make that change. Matt Eberflus is gone out of Chicago. They named an interim coach, and I'm sure they'll bring in somebody else. Let's get on to the big story of the week or of the day, and that is just a couple weeks ago, Donald Trump won the election. And listen, Trump is a crazy man. He's not a politician. He just isn't. He's totally outside the beltway. The man doesn't operate like politicians do. We learned that the first time around. I remember in 2016 when Trump was elected, people said they were really, those who didn't like him because he wasn't a politician. And I said then, and I'll say it again, politics will never be the same. America wanted to break the system. America wanted change. America wanted to differentiate something. They wanted a businessman in that office. I contend Trump would have won it 4 years ago if it weren't for COVID. But unfortunately, because of COVID, he didn't. And I contend that was actually a good thing for us because that led to a sweep of the three levels of branches of government. You're with the Senate, the House, and the presidency. So now the Republicans, we've got all three going into the next 2 years. And today, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau flew down to Florida and had dinner with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago Club less than a week after Trump had talked about heavy tariffs on imports in North America trading partners. The threatened tariffs on Canada and Mexico suggested Trump is eager to reopen U.S. Mexican Canadian agreement, a free trade accord that came into force in 2020. It's USMCA, and that replaced decades-old NAFTA pact. Remember, Trump just thought that NAFTA was the worst trade deal ever. And what Trump wants to do, listen, Trump's a crazy man when it comes to that. You can't count on what Trump's going to do. But the other thing about Trump is he believes in peace through strength. It's all about strength, a position of strength. And I contend this, and Rick and I were just talking about this upstairs moments ago. Rick, you and I talked about this. If Kamala Harris had won that election, do you think that Justin Trudeau would have had a conversation, let alone flown to where she is to have discussions about the border, about economy? And just yesterday, the Mexican president was on the phone with Trump about the same thing.
Wouldn't have had to, Jeff. They're basically on the same page when it comes to things like that. So that's a non-issue.
Would have never happened, would it?
Never.
Absolutely. So Trump has the Canadian Prime Minister flew to him down to Florida to have conversations about tariffs. That shows a seriousness that Trump has positioned in government. Trump is unpredictable, which makes him crazy. Hence, world leaders take him more serious than a traditional politician like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. Whether you like him or not, I've always said this about Trump. Whether you like him or not, the fact is it's the first president in my lifetime back in 2016 where he told us what he was going to do. He told us, and he did it. I mean, he's the first. Rick, you're 70, is it? Tomorrow's your birthday? I think
yes, sir.
Happy birthday.
Thank
and
you.
You're 70. I'm much younger than you. In 70 years, you ever seen a guy run for president and actually tell you what he's going to do and do it?
The closest I can get to is Reagan and I remember that well.
I don't. I was in high school and college at that time, but
I can tell you something, Jeff. I was in the military 73 through 79. And I was in Fayetteville, North Carolina at Fort Bragg Pope Air Force Base at the time.
Sure.
And I remember sitting up, listening to a late night talk show. I believe it was the Dick Cavett show.
Okay.
Donald Trump came on. And it was no secret. He was a Democrat at that time.
Oh God, he's a Democrat longer than he has been a Republican.
Yes, he was. But his ideas were conservative.
Yeah.
Declared Democrat, but his ideas were conservative. And I looked at that TV show that night and I said, and he was a very young Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I said, that man's going to be president one day.
And
there were two or three of us in the TV room. And they pretty much, a few of them disagreed. He said, there's no way. But it came to fruition.
So my question to you is this. Do you think if the Democrats had won the White House, whether it be Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, is there any chance in hell that the winner of that race, whether it be Biden or Kamala or whoever it is, would have taken the Democrats serious and had conversations with the president-elect or the next president, so to speak, with regard to border and financial security like we've had this week with Trump? My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. Love to hear your comments at 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-WBAP. You can also catch me across social media at Westside Jeff. I contend no. There's no way in all God's creations. The fact is, this election was won on two issues. Number one is my pocketbook, kitchen table money. Actually, that's number two, and number one was border. And border wraps into crime and immigration and a bigger issue. President Trump won because of those two issues. And before he's even president, within 4 weeks, he's addressing both issues with the president of Mexico and the Canadian prime minister in Canada. Speaking of, on the other side, I got to hit a quick break. On the other side of this, it's about three and a half minutes long. And on the other side, I want to tell you my perspective. I got to say thank you to Governor Abbott, because the reason Trump won, I contend, is Governor Greg Abbott. I'll explain that in about 3.5 minutes. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. So, Westside Jeff is my name. Sitting in for Chris Crock. Chris is back on Monday. I'll also be in a little bit through the month of December. You can catch me across social media at Westside Jeff. My story is just simple. I give you common sense opinion on current events. I'm a guy that just follows the news. I watch all the channels. I love CNN because I want to see what the enemy says. I watch MSNBC. I watch News Nation. I watch them all because you know what? You know it and I know it. I don't need to tell you this. You don't know who to trust. And my attitude is if you watch them all and you see everybody's different spin on it, then I put myself an opinion. I create an opinion on that. So it's all about me creating an opinion. I analyze it first. I generate an opinion and I get a chance to voice it and share it with you. And it may not be something you like, but it may be something you like. And I'd love to hear your comments on things we talk about. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I said a moment ago that the big story going down right now is Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, is at Mar-a-Lago in Florida having dinner with Trump. And they're talking about the tariffs, trade, those kinds of things. I contend there is nothing else that would have gotten Justin Trudeau into the United States of America in front of the next president of the United States, whether it had been Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Donald Trump, other than the election of Donald Trump. There's no way in hell he'd be here today or any other day except because of Donald Trump. And the reason he's here is because Trump won the election. Now, Trump won the election because the number one issue in the election was border security and immigration. And border and immigration is hand in hand tied with crime. They are tied together. Got friends in town for the holiday weekend. Rick is a family friend. He and I were talking over dinner earlier tonight, having these kinds of conversations, and he's got strong opinions on it, and he wanted to talk and I'm like, Rick, I gotta go. I'm on the air. I gotta go. And he's like, well, I'm not done yet. I said, come on, jump in the car. You're gonna go with me. We're gonna go down to the studio, and we can talk a little bit on the radio. So that's what I did. I asked Rick to join me in the studio because he feels strongly about it. He lives up in Nashville, turned 70 years old this weekend. Happy birthday to you, Rick.
Thank you.
I said a moment ago that the reason Trump won is the number one issue was border security. And the reason, now think about this. Border security is important right here in Texas. We're a border state. But do you think people in Iowa? Do you think people in Minnesota? Do you think people in the Dakotas and Missouri, Nebraska? Ohio, how about the Rust Belt states? Ohio, Pennsylvania, the 7 states that were the swing states, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina. Do you think people in those states care about immigration? Hell no, they don't, because they're not border states. But I contend, and I said it a moment ago, the reason Donald Trump won, he can thank Governor Greg Abbott. And that's because when the borders were wide open and it was absolutely a mess, and the Biden administration was denying it, and they were absolutely saying that wasn't a problem. It was Governor Abbott was the first one to do this. He was putting people on planes and flying them around country. And he was putting them in cities that were not border cities, border states. And I remember watching an interview with Abbott on national TV on some network. I don't know which one it was. And he said, I'm going to make every state a border state. He said, the problem is, here in Texas, we're the ones left to clean up the mess. We're the ones that have to have these illegal migrants in our state and cover them with social services. It's costing Texans money. It's not costing Nebraskans money. It's not costing Minnesotans money. It's not costing money to folks in the Dakotas, in Iowa, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan. It's costing people in Texas. So he made immigration and border security a national issue, not just a Texas or Arizona issue. So I contend that we've got Governor Abbott to thank for the election of President Trump. I contend, and I swear to myself, if Abbott had not done that, I'm not sure Trump would have won the election, because the border wouldn't have been the number one issue, and the border wouldn't have been something so significant that that America, all the states, felt strongly about. Rick, you heard what I said about, we started talking about this earlier today in my kitchen as we were having dinner. You agree with that? Your thoughts? Your
yes, sir.
Thoughts?
Well, I got handed to Abbott. And he's way ahead of this issue. He was ahead of this issue. Well, it was a survival thing. It was a survival issue for Texas.
Hell yes, it was.
Still is. And with the recent ruling, love it. The illegal migrants, they'll be going straight to an ICE detention center. And that's where they need to go.
But that's what Americans voted for. That's what people want. That's what, exactly. And that brings up a question I got to ask to our listeners, and that is, do you want mass deportations? Do you want to see Trump come in and day one and move 13 million, 15 million people back to their home country? I say no, I don't.
And Jeff, that's not going to happen.
I don't think so.
I mean, Trump has his priorities, and they're righteously they're a good set of priorities. You know, you go after the criminals, you go after the gangs. Then you go after the ones who didn't show up. Well, they're all criminals.
You go after the ones that have committed crimes, not just come to the country.
The crimes, and then the ones who didn't show up for their appointments, their asylum appointments, which they've already said. I think they quoted the other night that 90% of migrants who claim asylum. Thank you, Jeff. 90% of those lose their cases. So, and from my understanding, there's supposed to be a step-up process at those ICE detention centers in Texas to get the ball rolling and get a decision on those cases.
I agree with you. I don't see Trump coming in. I don't see him coming in and deporting 13 million, 15 million, whatever millions of people.
No, but can I offer you a suggestion? I mean, this is my opinion, Jeff. I mean, and, I own my own company, and I know a lot of illegals who've been here for a long time. There are a lot of illegals in this country that own their own businesses. They pay their taxes. They've been here for years. And I'm pretty sure that that's not the people that Trump is talking about going after. We want productive people. We want people who contribute to society here. And in essence, I guess maybe it's just our way of saying we want people in this country that are going to make this a better country.
And give me 7 minutes and I'll explain that in detail, how the immigration and border issue will never be completely fixed. And I'll tell you why. And I want your perspective. You and I didn't talk about this yet upstairs in the kitchen, or in my kitchen, right? We didn't talk about this yet. I'm going to surprise you on what I'm going to say. And when I do, as a small business owner, this is perfect. I want to hear your perspective on this. It won't ever really be solved. Government as a whole, Democrats and Republicans, don't totally want to ship illegals back because they're dependent on them here in this country. And I'll explain that in 7 minutes. The bottom of the hour news coming up in just a few minutes. We got Sean Allen also coming up. Your thoughts? You're looking at me like, I got to say something, Jeff.
Birth rates.
What do you mean birth rates?
That would support increased immigration, but legal immigration.
Yeah. And I think we all agree with legal immigration.
Right. But the United States is not the only one, but we are going to face it one day. The birth rates are down in the United States, and we're going to need to bring people in for the economy to prosper.
I want to talk about that. It's funny you bring this up because I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I'm going to tell you why in about 5 minutes, right after the bottom of the hour news, why immigration is so important to America and why it's important to our listeners and why it's important to you at 70 and me in my 60s. We'll talk about that. It's a very important issue, something most people have never thought about. I heard this from another business owner. I want to run it by you. We'll talk about that after the bottom of the hour news coming up in about 2 minutes. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Westside Jeff back in with you. As Chris Crock takes tonight off, he'll be back Monday. You can catch me across social media at Westside Jeff. I born and raised up in Ohio, have family across the United States, and got family in town. My wife's family this weekend came in for Thanksgiving weekend. And one of them, Rick, he's a small business owner. He's in the flooring business. He lives up in Nashville, and decided to come down to join me. He and I were just sitting around having pizza earlier 2 hours ago, and we're talking about life, politics, top issues like Trudeau visiting with Trump tonight at Mar-a-Lago, Trump winning the election, the border security issues, immigration. And Rick just kept talking and talking. And no offense, Rick, you kept talking. I couldn't shut you up. And I'm like,
well.
Rick, come on, jump in the car. I'm going to the studio. You and I will continue the conversation. Let's have this talk on the radio. And so my buddy Rick joined me. Don't know how long he's going to stay. He's got to get home at some point in time, but wanted to join me. So Rick is a small business owner. I said to you a moment ago, immigration will never get fixed. Here's my take on this. I got to set up this way. Just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with a small business owner who's a very good friend of mine. I'm not going to out this person because if you know any business owners, they don't want to talk about these kinds of things. And if you're a business owner or associated within a business, I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you don't want to use your real name, feel free to call and add some context to this without your real name or your business name. That's fine. My number is 800-288-9227. The story is this. Immigration will never, ever get fixed. It will never get fixed. We will always have illegal immigrants in this country, and here's why. It comes down to something very, very simple. The Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy released a report just about 2 months ago and found that undocumented residents in the United States paid $25.7 billion into Social Security funds and $6 billion into Medicare just in 2022. Both programs that they are now not entitled to use. In total, undocumented immigrants paid about $96 billion, or roughly $9,000 per person in taxes in 2022. Let me explain it. My business owner buddy was telling me that he was doing some work for a highfalutin person several years ago. The highfalutin person was a part of the Reagan administration, pretty high up in office. And they were having a conversation years ago about immigration. And the Reagan administration person said, immigration will never get fixed. Republicans don't want it fixed. Democrats don't want it fixed. And my small business owner said, why? And the guy explained it exactly what I just told you. There are millions, as we know, of undocumented people in the United States. Many of them are working. The small business owner I'm talking about said to me, Jeffrey, he said, I've got about 60 employees. I know 8 of them are here illegally. And I said, what? He's like, I have 8 employees who work for me. And I know they're here illegally and they're on my payroll. I said, whoa. Explain that one to me. He said, they provided me with a Social Security number. They have a social. And because of that allows me to hire them. I don't have to ask them if they're here legally or illegally. All I need is a Social Security number, and I can hire them if they pass a background test. So there are at least 8 people I know who work for me. And he said, every paycheck they get, I pay 6.5% of their income to Social Security, Medicare. And they pay 6.5%. We're talking 13% of their wages goes into Social Security and Medicare. He said, now just for the heck of it, Jeff, he said, I pay my guys $30 an hour. Do the math. $30 an hour times, call it 50 hours a week. I'm contributing, I think the number was like $1,300 per pay period or something like that to Social Security times 8 guys. Now do the math. Do that number times another couple million people. And think about the money they're contributing to Social Security. I said, okay, keep going. And he said, because they're here illegally, they cannot withdraw money from Social Security. He said, Jeff, let me clue you in on something. Illegals are funding Social Security and keeping it from changing dramatically, of increasing Social Security age and the kick the can down the road, the Social Security administration going broke. It's going to be longer because on the backs of the illegals. I said, doesn't that bother them? He said, hell no. He said, they know they're never going to withdraw money from it, and they're okay with that. I said, how do you fix it? He said, here's what you do. He said, you come to my business and tell my illegals that I know they're illegal, but I don't know they're illegal, but they are. Tell them to pay a $4,000 one-time fine, and that we will accept them and okay with it, and that $4,000 goes to Social Security. They can continue to stay here, some kind of a work program, and the contributions they make to Social Security will help fund Social Security, and they are okay if they never collect from Social Security. They'll pay the fine. That increases the take into Social Security and extends the length of Social Security being solvent. And he said, the promise to them is we get ICE and the whole deportation off the table for them. But if they break the law, if they become, criminals, if they go, they're arrested for a significant crime, more than just a speeding ticket, that they can be deported. And I started thinking about it, went, that just makes real good sense. Now, Rick, you have not heard me have that conversation. You and I had not have that conversation earlier. You're a small business owner yourself.
Yes, sir.
And you've got many crews. Tear apart what I just said.
There's no downside to that.
Am I right on that they're funding Social Security?
Right, as far as funding the Social Security and not collecting it when it's due, yes.
So for our listeners listening to us right now, they're wondering why immigration is such a big problem and why don't Republicans want to fix it as much as we do. That's why. They're keeping Social Security solvent.
Yes.
Helping.
And I maintain that is a big part of it, yes.
My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Crock, you got a thought, you got an opinion, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I've mentioned this to a couple folks who have just been caught by surprise, looked at me and go, I did not know that. I've never heard of that. And now some of that makes sense. So what the small business owner was saying, and you and I, Rick, just a moment ago before we went live on our mics, in between the news break, I said to you, are you aware of this? And you said, yes. You know of folks in trades in and around the state of Tennessee, which is where you live, that you know for a fact there are illegals that meet that criteria, what I just said. They're here illegally. They got a Social Security number. They're working for a business. They're paying their Social Security taxes. The businesses too, and it's contributing to Social Security and Medicare and helping keep it solvent. And those immigrants who are here illegally understand they will never withdraw from it, and they're okay with it. So you are very well aware of the exact same scenario I just mentioned.
Oh, yes. Of friends and business acquaintances.
And when I tell you that the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy found that undocumented residents paid $25.7 billion into Social Security funds and $6 billion in the Medicare just in 2022, both programs that they are not entitled to use. In total, undocumented immigrants paid $96.7 billion or $9,000 per person in taxes in 2022. Now, the challenge with that, Rick, is this. Even though, and the smart person listening is going to say this, yeah, they can't take money out of Social Security or out of Medicare, but they're drained on social services elsewhere.
I don't know, Jeff. I've heard that, and I have quite a few illegal immigrant friends, mainly because my wife is an immigrant, legal immigrant from Mexico. And believe it or not, she did donate $500 to the Trump campaign, which explains why a lot of Mexicans or Hispanics jumped on, legal Mexicans voted for Trump. That's right. It's the reason why. One is they don't want to see this country turn into the country they came from. And another one is they did it illegally, and they don't want to see the illegals getting in before they do. There are a lot of people waiting around the world to get in legally.
I want to hear from our astute listeners. You heard me lay it out. Immigration will never be fixed. They are helping to fund Social Security and Medicare. They're extending the solvency of Social Security and Medicare. And because of that, politicians don't have to address that problem. They don't have to go in and say, we're going to increase the age of retirement for Social Security. We're going to change it. We're going to ask people to pay more, because immigrants are paying into it and know they'll never take money out of it. Keeping it solvent. If you are associated with a business, if you have inside knowledge on that, if you can validate what I said, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love you to add some context to it. 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-WBAP. If you have an opinion on that, hit me up on that. If this is the first time you've heard it and I've stunned you and you disagree or agree, call me out on that. 800-288-9227. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Crock. Got to hit a quick break. In 3 minutes, we'll continue the conversation. I see the phone line starting to light up. Jeff from Plano, Bill from Pottsboro. We'll get to you right after this. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM on WBAP. So Trump wins the election. The number one issue was border security and illegal immigration. I had a conversation just a couple weeks ago with a small business owner who said to me, immigration will never get fixed. And it ties back to Social Security. You and I know Social Security is going to become insolvent at some point, because it's not changed dramatically since it was put in, in 20 years? But the fact is we live longer and we're paying out more. So we need, at some point in time, some politician somewhere is going to have to increase the age of retirement and increase the amount that we're contributing to Social Security. But in the meantime, here's why immigration won't be fixed. An analysis for the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy found that undocumented residents paid $25.7 billion into Social Security funds and $6 billion into Medicare in 2022. The 2023 numbers have not been released yet. Both programs that illegal immigrants know they are not entitled to use, they're not entitled to access, and they won't. In total, undocumented immigrants paid $96.7 billion, almost $100 billion, or $9,000 per person in taxes in 2022. I heard this from a small business owner a couple weeks ago. Said, Jeffrey, I know I've got 8 people who work for me who are here illegally. They're on my payroll. He explained it to me. He said, every paycheck, I pay them $30 an hour. They're putting 50 hours a week in. 6.5% of their income, their check, goes into Social Security. I also pay 6.5%. That's 13%. Do the math. I did the math and I was like, holy crap. I started looking up the information across many, many sources and read exactly that. I've asked several other business owners about it, and that's a fact. That's the reality. Buddy of mine, Rick, is in town from Nashville for the weekend. I said, come on, Rick, let's go talk on the radio, because we were talking about some of these things, and he joined me. He's a small business owner himself. He just validated it. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your take. I want to hear your opinion on this, especially if you're a business owner, small business owner. Use a fake name. I don't care. I'd like you to validate and tell me I'm right, tell me I'm wrong. Shoot loopholes in it. The reality is illegal immigration is keeping Social Security afloat. And that's saving the butt of both parties, no matter what your affiliation is, Republican or Democrat, in government. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. Bill from Pottsboro, thank you for listening. I appreciate you being a part of the show. Give me your 2 cents worth on this topic.
Yeah, It is exactly what's happening, and I was a small business owner. I was 260 employees, and I'll tell you, it's exactly what happens. This is another thing. The federal government, they don't produce anything. They have to take tax money in order to be able to, because we don't have tariffs on anything, so they have to take tax money. So this is why all the Democrats, who are definitely tax and spend people, want the minimum wage raised, because would you much rather have 30% or 18%, whatever the percentage is on that? Would you rather have 18% of $30 an hour or 18% of $7 an hour? So this is just going to increase the coffers. They don't care about the small business people at all. By raising minimum wage, they're absolutely killing small business. That's exactly what they're doing. But that's because the government is they just need more money. They're just thirsty. They can't live within their budget, so they have to create other ways to make money themselves, and the only way they can do that is taxes.
Bill, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. I appreciate you sharing it. You're a small business owner, 260 employees, and spot on. I nailed it exactly. And you know what, Bill? I never thought about that, by the way. Rick, I never thought about what he said, and that's also why Democrats are in favor of increasing the minimum wage, because if they increase the minimum wage, the take to Social Security goes higher, right?
Right. And it just goes down the same road. It's inflationary, but yet the government is collecting more in taxes.
And you said to me a moment ago, and we'll talk about this after the top of the hour, and about give me 12 minutes, 13 minutes, we'll talk about this. You said to me, quote, Democrats love inflation. You gave me a quick nickel tour of that during that quick break just off the air, and I said, let's talk about that. We'll do that after the top of the hour, why Democrats love inflation. That's coming up in 13 minutes. Sandra from Fort Worth, thank you for listening. You're on the Chris Crock Show. My name is Jeff, Westside Jeff. Thanks for listening. Your thoughts?
No and hell no to this whole scheme. Two wrongs don't make a right. These people came here illegally. I don't care where they work or how. They are not right with us, and they don't have any respect for our country. I don't care about this. I think it's a ruse by people that are false Republicans that just want to keep the status quo going. We have to do what's right before God, not make up some dumb thing to try and make something bad good by doing something else bad. The ends don't justify the means. It's disgusting, and I feel insulted. My integrity and my intelligence are highly insulted by hearing that this stuff is even being considered, because it is so stupid against, the people that get here. Why do we want them here? We've got people waiting to get in that are worthy, and these people need to go. They need to go. We need to start behaving and doing things right rather than making up lame plans to keep the status quo going. I am so angry at what's being said. It's not even funny. I don't own a business, but I work, and I have worked for years. And I am absolutely mortified that people can vote for Donald Trump and then come up with this kind of junk. It just incenses me to no end.
Sandra, thank you for listening. I appreciate you calling and be a part of the show from Fort Worth. Rick, you were shaking your head a bunch throughout that. What's your thought?
Sandra, I totally agree with you, and I think most people do. But we have to admit nothing's black and white. At least we have somebody in the White House now that is going to chip away, and I mean big chunks of chip away. So one step at a time, and I think down the road, maybe we'll get there. Who knows?
And here's what I'd say to our small business, to those listening who are involved in small businesses or business owners or involved in payroll, involved in these kinds of things. You heard Sandra. She's angry. She's pissed off. She doesn't like this. She's totally against it. She wants to ship all the illegals away. Sandra, I'm not telling you it's the right thing to do and advocating for it. I'm not saying that's what we need to do. I'm telling you that's what's being done. I'm telling you, you don't know this. You don't know that's what's really happening. What's really happening is illegals are funding our Social Security solvency and keeping it afloat longer. Whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, that's reality. And that's also why illegal immigration. That's why Trump's not going to come in and ship 15 million illegal immigrants back. He may tell you he is. You may hear it. You may think that. That's not the case, because both Republicans and Democrats, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, will tell you we need them. Well, they won't tell you that. We need them here because they're helping to fund Social Security. They're contributing funds to Social Security and Medicare that they know they will never withdraw upon. So it's allowing you to collect Social Security longer without cuts. I'm sorry you don't like it, but that's reality. For those of you listening that can add some context to Sandra, please do so. My name is Jeff. My phone number is 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Westside Jeff. And for Chris Crock, got to hit top of the hour news, and the other side will continue the conversation. For those of you on hold, stick with me. We'll get to your calls next on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.